Hello, I am Robbie Baehr. This is my son Charlie. He's got running shoes. He's running to Movieguide. I know exactly what I'm going to say. Okay, let's do this fast. Baby Wrangler. Hi, I'm Robbie Baehr, and this is a continuation of a parenting segment, asking those questions, being a new parent, trying to figure out the answers for my son, asking questions about the media. And I get to be here with my father. So as a first-time father, I get to be here with my father. And I'm going to be asking him a question that we have gotten from you guys. So you guys have been submitting your questions, and after this video, please continue to submit your questions. So one of the questions that you guys submitted, and we hope that you guys continue to submit, was, what can I do if my son or daughter went to a party and saw a horror film and they're having nightmares and they're not able to sleep?
That's a very good question. That's actually happened when my children were little. Robbie was very little at the time. I have 3 boys and a little girl, and we had a friend over of my oldest boy who was in grammar school in the first few years, and the friend had nightmares all night long. And the next day I talked to the father about it, and the father said, no, he's a man, he can take it. And about 3 months later, the father came to me at a Christmas party at the school and said I was wrong. Children go through different stages of cognitive development. And the first stage of cognitive development, the first stage of their development of their personality, their psychology, their ability to deal with issues, is called the solipsistic stage. That's when they just think about themselves, and I've seen that your son Charlie is pretty much in that stage. The next stage of development is the imagination stage. And that's a stage that's confusing for parents because they get to be pretty articulate, but they confuse fact and fiction. So a friend of mine, Dr. Cantor, who was head of the department at University of Wisconsin, did her PhD on finding out, is there anything that the graduating class had seen when they were little that they were afraid of? Well, 90% of them had seen Jaws, that's how far ago it was, and they were afraid of getting in the water. Now this is University of Wisconsin. She wrote a book, Mommy, I'm Scared. Some of them said 90%, she didn't expect 90%. Some of them said, I'm afraid of taking the swim test in the swimming pool at the University of Wisconsin because of this. And all of these different reactions. One of them said, I used to think that a shark would come through the air conditioning system. So children are very vulnerable at that age. Now, how do you deal with it, which was the question that you were presented with, is you've got to sit down with the child and talk to them about it. One, you've got to show them that these things are just fantasy. So put them in front of a whiteboard or a blackboard, videotape the child, and then stop the video, move the child out of the way, and then show them that they disappeared. And say, of course, you didn't really disappear. This is just a camera trick. What you have to do is help them to think through how this fantasy was created, because in the imagination stage of cognitive development, they're likely to believe that their imagination is real.
So basically, what they have to do as a parent is to be able to show the child that it's fantasy. And so in order to be able to do that, they have to hopefully do some of these processes so that they can disassociate the memory from truth to fantasy, right? So that they can sleep well at night and things
Well,
like
that's
that.
very well said. I mean, on one hand, the overview of all this is the culture-wise family, is that it helps you understand the overview. There are detailed exercises you can do in the media-wise family. For instance, you can do color identification, you can do the taking the videotape in front of the screen and moving them out of the screen. There are exercises that have been developed. When we developed that book, there were 60 experts from the University of New York and around the country that worked on it. So there's really specific things that you can do, and they work. You know how well I know they work? Because here you are today.
Look at that, what a great statement from a father. No bias. One other question, and you kind of addressed it. There's a lot of psychological research that says that images that you see, you never lose them, or it takes 7 years in order for your mind to pass them. What do you say to that, to a child who maybe has seen something terrible? What can you say to sort of help them through that process? Is it something that's going to be marked into their brains forever? Is there a way to work through that? Is that psychological research wrong?
Well, the research is fairly conclusive. We know that people have long memory patterns. We also know For more recent tests, including Dr. Donald Hilton in San Antonio and a whole series of German tests on different types of media that people were being exposed to, that it changes the brain. In fact, Donald Hilton, because there was a lot of debate about whether people just retain it psychologically, showed that there's a physiological change that takes place. And the German testing showed that when people are watching things like pornography, that their brain starts to shrink because they're activating that area of the brain which seeks pleasure and not activating the frontal cortex, which seeks to control their actions, and therefore the frontal cortex starts to decrease. All of this sounds very scientific, but it doesn't have to sound scientific. What it has to do is recognize that there's several things that you do with your children before this even happens. One, know before your child goes and sees the movie. You know, when my children were little, they used to call me and say, they're about to show this movie, and quite often we'd have to talk to the parents and say, oh, I don't think you should do it, and explain to them the whole behavioral process and development process that happens. Number two, if they've seen it, then you have to get them to start thinking about it. Now, of course, when they're in the 17 or 18, it's a little bit easier in some ways, maybe not in other ways, but when they're 9 or 10, it's very hard because their imagination stage is so clear that it's hard for them to get a grip on what they've seen. So you've got to work with them, you've got to be with them, you've got to counsel them, you've got to take time with them. The average parent, according to Cornell, only takes 2 minutes a day talking to their children, not just telling them what to do. So you've got to talk and listen to their fears and help each one of their fears to be addressed. But yes, it does have a long-term influence. Yes, there is an answer. The answer to this is that God says that He will cleanse your mind, renew your mind, give you a new mind. So if you turn to Jesus Christ and pray with your child, you know, God will do the answer. He will give them a new mind in Christ.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we're going to keep answering more questions, and we're going to have all sorts of different experts. And I was so privileged to be able to have my father here today, being a new father and having such a great person to follow in. And we've just done a lot of this research over the last 30 years of Movieguide. And so we're going to kind of bring some of that up, and we're going to talk to all sorts of different experts and help you guys along the way. So please submit your questions in the comments below, and we look forward to seeing you guys again. Thanks so much.